So today we talked about 4 dynamic things that any association has to do to be really successful in the future. They actually almost have to operate like a for-profit entity about how they go to market. So we started off talking about doing the 10 fundamental things that every association needs to do. You got to do those with awesomeness. Then we talked about having phenomenal customer service, then having a digital technology connection to your customer, and then a dynamic workplace culture that you have inside. Those 4 pillars are the keys to any organization really making it big in the future as we run into labor shortages, market disruption, and shifts that are happening so fast. You need employees, volunteers, and everybody around you to really be tuning into those 4 areas in order for you to be successful in the future.
So I'm Tom Morrison, and there's one thing you never say to a guy that comes from the state of Florida, and what would you think it is coming here to Chicago? You never mention the word snow and day in the same sentences. I'm trying to get out here as fast as possible because I cannot stand to drive in snow. So I'm hoping to spend a little bit of the day with you guys, but I'm excited to be here. And this whole thing called unending uncertainty, he said 2,600%. I'm going to show you a chart in a little bit that's going to show you that, how we've tackled that the last 12 years. But that fog, that fire hose of stuff coming in, that thing that Kevin just showed, could not be closer to the truth. I mean, we come into work every day and all this uncertainty is tackling our way. But here's what I believe in my world of 22 years experience is we don't succeed because we don't know what we want. Kevin said it right. Do you know where you're going? Somebody said something to me about 10 years ago that said, Tom, we need to quit planning for a future we cannot predict and create the future that we want. I've spoken over 100 times to people around the country, strategic planning meetings, keynoting and stuff, and what I really understand is we do really focus on all this stuff that we don't know instead of putting 100% of our effort on creating what we want. And that's what I'm hoping to do here today. I'm going to talk to you about 4 pillars, and you're going to dig deep into that with some of the other speakers. 4 pillars I think every association needs to have in their bailiwick getting it done. So I am Tom Morrison. I'm CEO of the Metal Trading Institute, not to be confused with the Mental Trading Institute. We're only 1 letter off, and we get confused all the time. It's so funny. I got introduced one time by this guy. He had a script in front of him, and it said, Tom Morrison from the Metal Trading Institute. And he introduced me as Tom Morrison from the Mental Training Institute. I'm like, that's a whole nother topic that I have no expertise on. So I've been CEO of 3 organizations, and we have grown over 2,600%. I have wrote 2 professional development books since the last time I was here. The first book was called How to Get People to Scream Your Name and Beg for More. And it's really about how to network with people and get them to help you do life well. And the second one that was just released on Amazon called The Dash, making sure your obituary won't suck, right? Making sure you live in the moment every day. So I love coming to these meetings and making a difference in people's lives. I got a rock star wife who used to be a personal fitness trainer, which what do you think that does to me, right? I can't hide in the closet anymore to eat my Snickers bars. You know, you got to come out in the open. So we got a good family, 3 married children, all self-sufficient, doing good, not calling me for money, which makes me rich again. So I got money to travel here. So let's move on. So let's talk about what we know. So this is an incredible graph that really demonstrates so much about where we're at as a society. So you can look, we got the 3 big. We got the baby boomers, the Gen X, and the millennials. The baby boomers, they're keeping them longer into their 90s because of healthcare technology and diets and working out and stuff, which when you can add 10 to 15 years to a whole demographic group's society, that has incredible impact on the economy. And then you got the millennials who are 100 million strong. Everybody in here should be extremely excited at this very moment because we're about to go through a 20-year growth spurt that we've never had in our economy in the history. Take you back to 1978, the baby boomer, the oldest one was 33 years of age. The 80s and 90s were the highest grossing growth years of our entire life because there were so many baby boomers buying everything from houses to cars to, well, computers weren't back then, but they were buying everything under the sun. Now you got 100 million millennials who are now 33 is the oldest one. Everything from housing. We're not going to be able to build houses fast enough. Cars, depending on, now the automotive world is pretty much die over the next 20 years. The automotive revolution because of ride sharing. It's going to be there, but many of them are going to take Ubers and stuff. But every industry, weddings, if you're a photographer, if you're in the wedding industry, anything connected with that, we're going to have record weddings. So my point to you is what we know that can take the uncertainty out is that the millennials are going to drive everything and the baby boomers are going to drive everything. I call it the rule of 33 and 73. You want to be as an association asking yourself, do our members cater to the 33-year-olds? And the 70-year-olds, because whoever does that is going to have monumental growth the next 20 years. Now let's talk about workforce. That big trough, the Gen Xers, we have an 8-year problem, which I'm going to talk about later, but there are not enough workers. The black line is all jobs out there that need qualified people. You can see a 3.7% unemployment. It's tough to find people here. I usually ask in a meeting room, how many of you have had someone qualified, teachable, trainable, and want to work, walk through your doors and say, I'm ready to work. Do you have a job? They don't exist. One guy stood up and said, Tom, that's a unicorn. Shoving pixie dust everywhere because they don't exist. So it's imperative that you're going back to this is a great area of value for your organization. Most business owners are waking up, sweating, not knowing where they're going to get their next workers, and what you need to be honest with them with is they don't exist. The workers that we all want to hire are already working somewhere else. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Young joiners. A lot of people say the young people aren't joiners. People in reality, baby boomers didn't join squat in their 20s unless they were required to by law or CE credits. They joined things at 30 to 33 when they began to have discretionary income with that first job. And guess what? The oldest one just turned 33, and there's 100 million new members coming our way running, and they're all going to want to get into associations if, and only if, you have value that draws them in, and it's time now for you to build that value because now they're coming of age and they want to spend their money and come to you. So that's what we know. So here's my mantra I always tell associations. Everybody's been mission-driven forever. Mission-driven. Our mission is this. Our mission is that. Well, here's what you got to know. The mission has now become not something you buy. It's become a charitable opportunity that people say, you're going to do that whether I'm a member or not. So you need to move away from being mission-driven to being value-based, because that is specifically what the millennials buy. It's what most Gen Xers buy, and that's where me as a baby boomer, many of us buy. We want to support the mission because we were closer to the development of the organization 20 years ago. Our father was there, our grandfather. Millennials, they're so far removed, they're like, what are you doing for me? And that's not a bad thing. But you must walk back to your association and say, look, we got to remember, members support our mission, but they buy our value. And man, let me tell you something. In a lot of strategic planning meetings I've done, I've never been amazed when I started off and asked the board, what do you think the value is of this association? And you get a blank stare, which is something I just cannot imagine having a blank stare. It's imperative that you absolutely have a value statement that your board and your staff can recite by heart on instant notice. So they're going to buy your value. So let's talk about CUT. CUT is this acronym that I came up with that really talks to the speed of change that is going on. C stands for change, because it's constant and it's running at us faster than ever before. And that's not a bad thing. If you know what you want, think about a pilot. A pilot's going through storms, lightning, and fog, and clouds. Can't see where he's going, but he gets where he wants every single time. Why? Because he knows the destination, he knows the speed he needs to go at, and he knows where he's going, he knows how to react when things get off base and variable. Associations need to learn to do that much better. They need to know where they're going, as Kevin said. So market disruption, and U stands for urgency. You know change is happening at fast pace, so you need to come back and go to your boards and your staff and have a sense of urgency to change on a dime, because things are changing on a dime. I'll show you some of that in a little bit. And T stands for time. We no longer have the luxury of time, folks. Change is happening so fast, and I'll give you an example. Market disruption is not a new thing. Everybody thinks that when Uber came out and disrupted the transportation industry, they were the poster child for Uberization. Take you back to 1902. I'm the largest horse and buggy dealer in the country. Doing awesome. I'm out in my front lawn with all my horse and buggies. I'm brushing my horse. I'm waxing my wheels. And all of a sudden, I hear this. I look up, and a Model T is running down the road at 10 miles an hour. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Disruption happened immediately when young Maverick Ford engineered the first car. Here's the thing, though. He didn't engineer them in mass production for 10 years, 1913. So my horse and buggy industry, I had 10 years to go with my leadership, to go with my people, and decide, what are we going to do next? Do we want to be a horse and buggy dealer another way? Or do we want to, maybe we just do recreational horse and buggy vehicles? Or maybe we get into the automotive business, and most of them probably did. But they had 10 years. Today, you're lucky if you have 2 to 5. In most markets, it takes an entire company to change. It takes a fair amount of time to change on a dime. So you need to be asking yourself, are we prepared to change in that fashion? You look at Airbnb. Airbnb in 2012 did 3 million stays. 3 million stays. In 2017, they did 100 million stays. What does that mean for that change in dynamic? What does that? Think about 100 million times an average of 3 nights. That's 300 million times $150 a night. That's a lot of money swiped out from the hospitality industry, from the hotels. What would their life look like if they were having that money? You know, you look at Uber. Uber did 173 million rides in 2014. 2 years later, they did 2 billion rides. How quickly that has dismantled the transportation industry. They want to do everything. They want to do Uber Eats. They want to do Uber everything, Uber transportation. So that tells you how fast companies can grow. 2 years, you went from 170 million to 2 billion rides. That's incredible. And then you look at Fortune 500 companies. Forbes already predicted, and this is something for everybody in this room to take heed on. If your association is tied to any of these companies and you don't know who they are yet, you got maybe problems. So they're predicting that by 2030, 40% of Fortune 500 companies will not be here. 40%. Think about that if your industries are tied to those companies. And we don't even know which ones they are yet. So you want to be talking to your customers and your members. What companies do you feel like are on the cusp of change, market disruption? That's a lot of companies. And if you don't believe that, you go back to 2000, they showed a list. Since 2000 to today, 52% of the companies that were on the Fortune 500 list back in 2000 are not here. Through disruption, through being consolidated, or they're out of business or bankruptcy because they didn't react fast enough. So that's big stuff. That's why I say the change to urgency to time. You need to have that. And then my goal today, I don't have all the answers for you because the questions are changing so fast. What I have for you is a frame of mind to walk back to your organizations and say we need to change how we think, how we drive change, how fast we want to change, because we can't afford to do this every year. It's imperative. I'm a big believer in quarterly public. You do your strategic plan once and get yourself going where Kevin says, go in the direction you know you want, and you're looking at it every single quarter at the board meeting, asking yourself 3 simple questions. What do we need to do that we're not doing? So you're not doing it and something's changed and you need to now do something different. What are we doing that we are doing right, but we need to do it better? And then what do we need to stop doing because it's getting in the way of progress? If you just ask those 3 questions to the board at the end of every board meeting, I guarantee you you'll keep, that's what we've done for the last 12 years. So frame of mind. So data metrics. If you're not collecting data metrics to give you yourself your bearings, it's imperative that you find 5, maybe 6. I'm a big believer, I've heard this from a guy on lean manufacturing. Every company, I don't care what industry you're in, there are 5 to the max of 8 numbers that can tell you everything else about your business. If those 8 are in line, you don't have to look at anything else. And so this is what we track. We track member dues revenue growth, our member retention. That's the ultimate customer service number. People say, do you do customer satisfaction surveys? I said, yeah, I do my member retention at the end of every year. We've been 95% or greater for the last 12 years. So engagement, we have an incredible value proposition I'm going to show you in a little bit. We have 83% of our members are in at least one of our 13 touchpoint programs, and we've had 149% increase in dues revenue or non-dues revenue in the last 10 years. And the big one I always say was the overall health of the association is our net worth. And this is why you want data metrics. When you're looking at data, think about an airline pilot. He's looking at a couple of different things, his altimeter, his height, everything, his speed, ground speed and stuff. And when those go off, he knows he needs to do something different, whether it's good or bad. Your data metrics tell you in any company to know when to change, because you're hovering like this and all of a sudden it dips. You're like, we need to change and change fast. It tells you when to change, exactly where to change. And here's what I love about today's data, because we have so much data in the past to look forward. You can predict with incredible precision if you're collecting the right data in the right way to tell you the right information you need to know. Predicting with precision, this is the biggest thing that you can send out to your members is all of our content, so much content we send out now on artificial intelligence to our members is teaching them how to do predictive maintenance, predictive servicing, predictive output, predictive production, because you can with so much. And then it keeps your board strategically focused. This one little graph right here, this is the big one I always give our board. I mean, wouldn't we have liked to have seen this downward trend right here in 2002 and said, hey, something's wrong, but we're not because we're looking at an individual timestamp. We're looking at a financial statement. We don't know. 200 grand on this side of the deal is bad. 200 grand on that side is really good. Why? Because the trend. So I want to encourage you, when you get your data metrics, it's imperative that you chart them on a 10-year graph. And this right here solves any of our board members. You ever have those board members that want to raise a ruckus? You're doing awesome, and they raise a ruckus because no one knows this. I remember being in a meeting when I first developed this and gave it our board. Our treasurer was she was a former CPA, and she liked going through the financial statements with the board, line by line. In the middle of it, one of my presidents says, Madam Treasurer, can I say something? She says, sure, Mr. Rich. He said, you know, in my opinion, when the green line is rising faster than the red line on the trend, it's time to accept the financial report. She said, enough said. And this key, because I've had many people, I'm just like every other exec, I have board members that don't like, my personality rubs them a little wrong, they want to do things in the board meetings that kind of just take us off track for some reason. And I have had board members tell me in closed door sessions when I'm not in there, they come out, they say, you know what, all we do is slide the financial trend graph across the table and say, check out the performance though. Check the performance out. And it shuts everything down. So it's imperative for a lot of reasons why you want to do a trend graph with your key metrics. The key is to find out what metrics are driving where you want to go towards value and everything else. So I got 4 things. I told you I was going to have 4 pillars today that I think that you need to have, that every company, I don't care if you're an association, a supplier, or a company, that you have to have if you're going to be great the next 10 years by 2030. So the first thing I think everybody needs, you be able to do the fundamentals. Awesome. When I sit with associations, I see these 10 things I'm going to show you. It's amazing to me how they want to look for the one thing like this, the one thing that when we say we have it, everybody's going to join. Because why? Because they don't know how to sell membership. They don't know how to build value. They're looking for that one thing that'll drive it, to membership. But I'm a big believer, if you're doing these 10 things awesome, membership never is a big deal. And the function of your association. So these things you must do awesome if you're going to be an association in the future. The number one thing, you got to get people back to the basics of why you join an association. We've spent 5 years on a branding campaign that pushed this. So when people thought of us, they thought about why we're doing this together. Because this is where apathy exists. If this doesn't exist in your association, that's why you have apathy, because they're not sold out to being better apart. They want to live on an island. They don't want to be amongst a group of people. So it's imperative that you get your members to see that it's better for us to be together than separate. I'd rather be somebody in this room than sitting in that room over there by myself trying to come up with a solution to the problems. And why? Because one, it gives us a chance to organize ourselves. No one person or company has to take on those roles. It lets you coordinate your efforts. You let people that have expertise in different areas. It lets you build trusting partnerships. You can research and innovate together. And what I love is the financial impact does not kill any one company. It's called dues. We spread that out amongst everybody in this room. Instead of one person over there having to pay $100,000, we all split the $100,000, say $250 a piece, and we can all afford to get that. That's great value. So it's imperative that they must understand why they join. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Your staff and your board absolutely has to have a keen understanding of your value. And don't leave it to pray that your board members know that value, because they all look at it differently. I suggest that you have a 2 to 3 minute video, just like Kevin and them have had, that display that value so it's succinct with all board members. But your staff is the best one, because if your staff doesn't believe in what you do, how can you expect a member or non-member ever to fall in love with your association? Because they can't give that passion to it. So they have to understand the value. Number 3 is ensure. Diversity is huge today. We're a very diverse society. Your leadership and your staff should really represent, and the engagement people in your staff and in your volunteer leadership should represent the diversity that's going on in your industry. Because everybody, we've learned, ASC's done some studies, they did one in 2011. Every one of the groups of diversity has different needs, different wants, different desires, and you need to capitalize on that and put those all together. So number 4, a culture of innovation. This is a big one for associations because we have to act fast. Many members look at us and say, you need to be the forerunner in here. I hate to see a member that's actually outpacing our ability to innovate. Because we have dollars, we have money, we have the best minds in the land. We ought to be able to stay ahead of our members and show them the way to go. And innovation is not a hard thing. A lot of people books have been written like 500 pages on innovation. It's 3 things. It's easy. Sit around with your board and ask yourself, and this, I think you need to survey your members. What do they desire? What do they want? Every day, I don't care if you're an individual society or a business trade association. Your members wake up every day with a non-perfect world with things that keep them up at night that stress them out. It could be hired employees. It could be not enough efficiency in their operations. It could be automation. It could be a lot of stuff. And it's incumbent upon you to figure out what is that and come up with programs that you can innovate. So what is desirable? What is possible in the marketplace? I'm one of those, if I got something that doesn't cost us very much, we're going to give it away for free inside the dues, because that builds your dues base as a highly valuable thing. We got 5 programs, five research studies that we do every single year. And a lot of people would charge for those. We give them away because it doesn't cost us very much to pull them off compared to the amount of dues we get, because one of them they'd pay $20,000 individually to have the research done for their company. We give that away to them if they just give us their sales number. So the more you can give away inside your dues justifies your dues in a large way. You don't need to charge for everything. And plus you get higher rates of return on it by doing that. So what is viable in the marketplace? A key too on viability is when you go to charge somebody, don't charge them what they need. Don't give them what they need or want, because that's always too expensive. You want to give them what they're willing to buy, what they can budget for, because now they're on your dime to sell them what they need and want. And 6 months later, they go, you know what? I think I actually want to upgrade to that other plan because I think now you got them on your team. And then the last thing is what's possible with technology. With us having a 3.7 unemployment rate, there's no one else to hire. So I don't care if you're a company or association, as your services expand, you got to have people, right? So the first thing that we ask in our association is, how do we do this with technology? Is there a platform out there? Is there robotics? Is there artificial intelligence that allows us to do this without hiring anybody else? And we've been able to do that through our communities and platforms. So number 5, identifying your members' friction, anxiety, and stress. This is where you find the value. Your members are made up like this. They have a business model, product delivery, customer service, operations, and workplace culture. Those are the 6 keys to any business. And it's imperative that you sit down with your members and ask them, when you go to work every day, Jeff, when you go to work, you have delivery, you have product, you have all these things. Where's the friction? I don't like the question, what keeps you up at night? Because what keeps you up at night is literally their frustration. It's not actually what's wrong with their company that you could solve. So when you ask somebody, where's the friction, anxiety, and stress in these 6 areas, they're about to tell you what's wrong with their company. Now you can look for common themes and say, we got experts that can help you solve that. So that's where you drive high pain points. And then you have this number 6 is effective flow of your value, which is membership. Do you have a membership model that gives them great value up front and down? And the big thing I tell people on this is appetizers versus entree. You don't have to have a brochure that says 150 things to join our association, because that freaks people out. You need to pick 5 to 6 things max and give them the appetizer. There's 2 to 5 things that reach 100% of the members that you want to reach. So you want to get them in on those things, and then once they're in there and getting those 2 or 3 things, you then move them to the entrees and the big things like meetings and stuff, because not everybody are meeting goers. So number 7 is this thing here. You want to be absolutely member focused with everything you do. Every benefit, every action you take needs to be member focused, and it focused on offering value and engagement. We never used to really engage our members. We just did all these benefit structures, and they took part, and we never really communicated. We sent out our newsletters, our emails. But it's imperative that everybody, I know you've got 100 reviews here, you need to engage people in reviewing, and you need to engage people in social communities if you don't have one. Your members want to talk to each other, and you need to give them a platform to do that all the time. And then you need to do it with a wow factor. YouTube and many other platforms have given people the sense of reality TV. Sometimes they want to be shocked, sometimes they want to laugh, but you need to do things with wow factor that reaches people's emotions, because that's what they see as big now, is their emotions. So understanding your member engagement points. We have 13 in our association. We track those, and we track them in 3 quantities. There are people that are they're informational members. All they want, like our studies. They want our studies. We don't charge for them. You get them in dues. You want to know who those people are. You want to know transactional-based members, people that give you money. And you have what I call emotional members. Those are members that come to a meeting or volunteer. We track them in those buckets, and our goal is to move people that do nothing to get them just in the information side. All the informational members, we want to get them to buy something from us. And all those that buy something from us, we want them to actually come to a meeting at some point. So it makes your strategies around that very succinct when you're talking to those pockets like that. That's number 8. Number 9, effective communication and technology strategies. I am never amazed when I do surveys with companies, associations, and I listen to their board. I send out an anonymous survey and ask them 5 questions. And one of the biggest things I hear from them is, we suck at communicating our value. I'm like, you're an association. How do you do that? So it's very important that if you've got a great value, that you have technology that allows communication to take place a lot, and that you have a communication structure that allows that value to permeate, whether it's through your newsletter, through your e-news. Everything you do says we're valuable, and you need to figure that out and have effective communication. And the last thing on 10, the biggest fundamental, is you need to have a value proposition that is clear, concise, and actual. You cannot sell perceived value. I know so many associations that want to say, how can we sell perceived value? Your members should give squat. That's called smoke and mirrors. You need to find out things that really hit their high pain points and reach that actual. And this is ours right here. When people say, Tom, I always give the simple example. You get on an elevator on floor 1, and your biggest potential member is staying on floor 10. He says, Tom, you have 10 floors to tell me why I should be a member. I want to be, but you got to let me know why I should be. And my big thing is you pull this out on a card, and every owner, now we represent owners, so this really hits them. We help you every single day maximize your profits and your productivity, and that immediately gets a spark. Well, how do you do that? Well, your number one thing you would struggle with is labor costs. We do a wage and benefit survey every day. You're buying $7 million pieces of equipment. The number one thing you want to know in the future is, what will sales be 3 years from now? We do a sales forecasting that's 99% or 96% accurate since we started it in 1978. 96% accuracy on what sales will be every 3 years. You would want to know that, right? Yeah, then you're in. So that you want to have, and I tell people, you can have a triangle, a square, or a hexagon, 6-sided, depending on how many things you think your value point. We have 6 really big value points that could reach 100%. Any 2 of these will hit any member I talk to or any non-member. It's very succinct that your board has something like this, and your staff really can say this without hesitation. Number 2, and I know you got someone that's going to be talking on this in just a little bit. This is just so great. It ties right in. But if you're going to be successful in the future, it's incredible that you have a phenomenal customer experience with your members at every level. Phenomenal customer experience. And you need to build value. We talked about that a little bit. Building value comes from listening to what your members want. I remember being in Seattle 5 years ago, and we have members that heat treat parts in airplanes. If they're not heat treated right, guess what? The landing gear falls off. So it's pretty incredible specifications they have to live by, standards. So I'm asking, what is it that we could do for you that would really, like, every day make you wake up and say, I love this place? And one of them said, Tom, we get audited And those audits are really private to us, but we would love to see other members' audits and the findings that come up and whether they're major, minor, and how they corrected those and what the auditor's notes were. I started thinking, so if we had an online platform that people could log in and keep the names off of, but you could see the wording that they would cut and paste in from the auditor's file in there, and you could search that by keyword, kind of the Google for audit, would that be valuable? They said, Tom, that'd be worth its weight in gold. Because auditors view things differently, so that sometimes there's inconsistency. So, and there's the finding of the month when someone goes on a hike with their audits. So if we could know that in 30 days from now, we could see, hey, this finding in this area is really taken off. Let's check our quality systems in that area and make sure that's right. So I said, would that be valuable? He said, Tom, that'd be great. So we immediately went out and did some survey and some research, and we put 20 grand into, and now we have that. And our members think it's awesome, but I would not have gotten that had I not learned to listen to my members and find out what is the pain point and connect that to a solution. So I got a short video that shows you what good listening looks like that we can all learn from.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on, if you would just...
Don't.
Try to see things my
I love that video, but what it says to me is how many times I've seen this in staff meetings, how many times our staff, I've even seen this with our own SAE association, we're trying to guess at what is valuable to our members instead of having deep-rooted conversations to find out what is going on in your life, what is going on in your world, what stresses you out, what can we do to help that process and come up with those things. So the next thing in customer, it's important that you build a pipeline, that you know who your potential members are, where they're at, and how can you go about them, and do you have different pockets of different types of members, and build a value proposition. You should not have a category of member on your application if you do not have a value proposition for those people. People are not going to join just to join. You need to dissect your suppliers, to your individual members, to your student members, every kind of membership type you have, and ask yourself, why in the world would they want to join this association? You need to have a value proposition for each one. So you need to have a pipeline. Then you need to build conversions. Do you have a process and a strong conversion that helps people understand why membership and why they want to sign the dotted line? Building conversions is key. And you want to build engagement. The engagement, for me, conversions are good. We've only taken in like 10 or 12 members. If you saw our membership line, it's 95% of retention, but it's kind of just it's not like this. It's just that we've grown 2,600% with a pretty much within 10% of our membership base like it is, because we put so much time in this part right here. I'd rather have a smaller membership at 95% retention and 83% engagement that is committed and sold out instead of having a 60% retention and you just have people turning. The biggest challenge with membership is having enough people to do membership and having enough people to do engagement. You can get Ritz-Carlton treatment, but sometimes that lacks because we don't have the staff to go out and do all these membership calls and stuff. But if you're on the membership calls, you're bringing people in and converting them left and right, but no one's on the backside giving them Ritz-Carlton treatment, so they want to stay and do everything. So building engagement is a key. Do you have a strategy for that? And then building evangelists. This is huge. The best people to build your membership is your members. Who's talking about you? Building evangelists. Are you staying in touch with them? Are you letting the local people in the area know who is not a member so they feel left out? This one guy who spoke at a FSA conference, or a conference I was at, he said, you want to build peer pressure. Like we've got a number of 83% of people are in all of our programs. We send that out constantly to all the people not involved in a program going, 83% of our members are joining something. You want to join the crowd, right? So when people feel left out, they more want to get involved. So building evangelists is a big key component. Volunteer-led member. It's important that you're getting your volunteers involved in calling your members and talking so they have an understanding. Because here's what I know about associations. The top third that serve on the board are serving why? Because they're doing well and can afford to be there. The smaller members are not serving on the board because they can't afford to be at your meetings all the time. That's why electronic meetings, which I'm not a big believer in for long haul. I think board members, when you commit to face-to-face meetings so you can come in and be a part of the process. So it's imperative that you have board members calling a lot of your smaller members so they have a humble understanding of what is our members really going. Because a lot of your bottom third of your members, they're just trying to make it day to day. Now, I think a lot of people are going to make money over the next 20 years, like I told you, but I think the bottom third think differently than the top third. It's imperative that you have those. And then the big thing I think, and now today, one of my good friends in here, which is Taryn Ben, she said something 4 years ago that struck me, and I've said it at every meeting when I do these talks, that your brand is not what you tell your customer anymore. Your brand is what your customer tells their peer it is. And so it's imperative that your association, whether you stick out and go out with a 100 reviews and build a review process, it's imperative that you tap into reviews, ratings, and recommendations. Because if you can really foster that inside your association, what better thing to do than to have people screaming, this association is awesome. It's a 5.0 out of 5.0. They're doing this, that, and the other thing. I highly recommend it. Then you've got your entire membership honing in on the membership strategy for you, and you don't need that membership director. They can focus in on customer service on the backside, building evangelists and building engagement. So customer to customer branding is important. And then when it's successful and you find it, repeat it. Repeat it as much as possible and keep that there. Our goal is to keep more than 80% of our members engaged and over 95% retention. I know if we do those two things, that graph you saw will keep going north. So number 3, it's imperative that you have a digital technology connection with everything that you do. Community, connection, everything. If you had a job board, everything needs to be moving towards a digital, and it needs to be focused on video and apps. That's the way people are going to want to see you in the future. And you need to look at, I'm going to show you 5 technologies that are going to drive the future. They're going to drive the future. And the question is, are you going to be in front of it, or are you going to be in the back of it, or is it going to run you over? And some of them are going to be opportunity and build opportunity for you, and some of them are going to be threats. They're going to threaten everything that you do as an association. There's one that I'm going to show you that's a threat to us in a huge way. You got to determine what that is. And you need to start doing it today. So I tell everybody, it's imperative that you look at who could be our chief change officer. Who's the person in charge of watching the studies, reading every YouTube video, everything. On a weekly basis on Fridays afternoons, I go out and type in market disruption future, and I watch whatever videos pop up on the top couple pages. And I get a sense of all these speakers around the country that are experts talking on this stuff. And sometimes they'll say something, I'm like, that is a problem for us. And I actually never thought it was a problem until I just heard it now. So you need to have someone in your team that's called the Chief Change Officer that's in charge of looking at the futuristic elements of what's coming your way in the industry. And then growth with no employees. I talked about this a little bit. Your members need to be thinking, how do I grow 50% in the next 10 years? That's just 5%. Most owners want to see 10% a year plus. How do I grow 50% in the next 10 years with no new employees? And you're asking, well, Tom, how's that to be? Well, because of the big trough in Gen X. Because of the big trough in Gen X, there's no new employees for the next 8 years. We have a problem, and I'm going to talk about that when we get to the workplace culture thing. So here's the 5 technologies that are going to drive everything. Shared mobility. You look at Uber. Uber right now has been a little bit Uberized because my members are riding, you ever seen the scooters, the birds in downtowns now? Instead of taking a little $5 Uber rides a mile or so away that you typically wouldn't walk, people are jumping on those scooters and riding away. That's taking a lot of internal business downtown for a lot of companies. So shared mobility, what is that going to do to the automotive industry? If you're an association that is tied to the automotive industry, you may have big problems over the next 10 to 15 years. I read an article from Automotive News, who's the biggest automotive group out there, and they said the automotive revolution is over with. Robotics is the next wave of revolution. So shared mobility. 3D printing, this is going to dynamically change all of manufacturing in a lot of ways. And let me tell you how it affects us. Our members heat treat metal parts, especially in airplanes. So I was at the Mughal Aerospace plant, and the guy said, he took us to our additive manufacturing, 3D printing part of their business, and he said, we now have the ability, we have a component, it's 75 individual parts that we used to ship out. And we used to ship it out to 10 or so heat treaters, our companies, to get it heat treated. And we'd bring it all back and we'd put it all together to its one component, and then it goes on an airplane. He said, now with 3D printing, we're able to print the entire component as one piece. One piece. And now that means that not 10 get heat treating, 1 may get heat treating. That was a lot of sales just sucked right out of our opportunity. And then, but it begged me to question. I said, well, you know what? If you can only make one part, would that prompt the discussion that you might want to get your own like 5 furnaces and keep it in-house and not ship anything out? He's like, that's part of the discussion. Our industry just lost tens of millions of dollars of revenue over that one piece of technology that came out called 3D printing. So you'd be asking yourself, in your world, if 3D printing was a real big deal and mass produced, and right now they can't mass produce things, but they are, if it was mass producing things, what would that be an impact on you, good or bad? Artificial intelligence. This is every professional society's nightmare. Because right now, it's where does artificial intelligence end and human interaction begin? IBM's Watson, I mean, they're just like killing it with a lot of different associations because now there's so much data that they're teaching it to think almost like a human that you can ask it questions, it'll give it back to you. And I remember I was walked out of an FSU alumni meeting that I was at and I spoke at, and the guy that was from IBM, he said, wait till Watson Legal comes out. So the attorneys have a big problem. CPAs have a big problem. If you're in a professional society, this is a big danger to your future because artificial intelligence can do a lot of stuff that professional societies of any types do. So robotics. There's a robot that has been built by LG, a Korean company. This is huge. If you're in the retail, if you're tied to the retail industry and the hotel industry, this is a big issue. It's going to be on one side good, but on another side bad. If you got young kids and friends that work in retail, they need to be aware of this. So in about 5 years, so they have robots now that will check you in and out of hotels. That's probably going to come to every major hotel at some point in time. They got robots that now will, in the airports, I know Minneapolis is big on this. You sit down an iPad, order up what you want. 10 minutes later, it shows up. Well, in a couple of years, a robot's going to bring that, not a retail person. And then you look at going into a grocery store. They have robots now that are being tested that's going to help you find things in the grocery store. Think about all the jobs, just those 3 robots, and they could be your members potentially. That's a lot of people. So I tell every organization, every industry, you need to be making people aware of this so they can change their skill sets. They don't want to be replaced by a robot. They want to learn the skills and go to school that can help them build the robots. Because robots are not going to build robots, folks. People are going to build robots. Robots will assist, but people are going to build them. So it's a whole other industry coming. So big thing. And blockchain. I'm not going to get a lot into blockchain. How many of you have ever heard and looked at blockchain? So a fair amount of people. So I encourage everybody to go out and type blockchain in YouTube. I watched 30 hours of video on this stuff, and it is the next wave of the internet. And if you're an intermediary that audits, confirms, or verifies information, your job's probably gone in the next 5 to 10 years. It's that serious. It's that good about what blockchain is. So study it because it is going to be something that reshapes everything. So my thing is inform on this stuff. We have a monthly thing. How many of you ever seen Kiki L'Italian on Association Chat? So I've been on that show. I've been a part of it. She inspired us about 1.5 years ago to start our own Heat Treat Live every first Wednesday of the month. And you can see here, the picture on the left is us as a panel. I'll have anywhere from 1 to 3 on there. And we'll just simply talk about the hot topics that impact our members. And you can see over there to the right, that you can't really see it clearly, but that's a room of our members. There's 7 people sitting in that room, and the guy shot me and says, Tom, we want you to know how this is impacting us. Whenever y'all are on TV, on the web, we've got you beamed up, and 7 of us are in the room, and we're tying into what you're saying because we know it impacts us so much. So I encourage everybody. This is on Zoom. I know Crowdcast has it, but Zoom is one of the best. No issues that we've come up with, but I want to encourage everybody in here. Get your value in front of your members in a live web-based environment. Find a great moderator who can handle the live element and be spontaneous and get that on there and get your members. Members love to hear from members, and they really are on this as well. So inform. And the last thing is a dynamic workplace. When you talk about not being able to hire any employees, one of my questions here is, can you afford to lose your big talent? Because if they go to your competition, you've now got this empty bucket of talent that you need to fulfill. And guess what? There's no one out there to fill it. So it's imperative that you have a dynamic workplace. Here's the real numbers. We're at 3.7% unemployment. There is no fast pipeline to fill it. None. And this is a 7-year problem that we got, an 8-year problem. And right now, one of my friends who works for Aerotech, who's one of the largest staffing firms in the country, he tweeted out not too long ago, there's, get this, 900,000 more jobs than there are unemployed people. 900,000. So there's way more jobs. So where is it going to come from? It's imperative that you're teaching your people about automation, robotics, artificial intelligence. So the next 10 years, they have a chance to push. Because what's going to be the biggest drag on our economy is not enough people working in our member companies to push the throughput out that gets them the biggest sales. So this is a real big problem. So the huge obstacles in front of us, though, are hiring poachers. I don't know if y'all, but I know our industry, our members are getting, people are going to LinkedIn and they're checking out your employees and they're calling them saying, hey, you happy at your job? People are not job hoppers because of any age. They're job hoppers because back in the boomers, we didn't know jobs were available. Now you got people, poachers call them, they can go on at any given day when they're mad at their boss, or unhappy that day, and look up a job on any number of 30 sites, Glassdoor, whatever, and there's unlimited job opportunities for all of them. So you need to be aware of that. That's why having such a dynamic workplace that really hones them in to want to be there is so important. And then the Uber impact. I know a lot of people, I ride probably 4 or 5 Ubers a month, and I talk to every single one of them. And I'm never amazed when they said, you know what, I used to work in a hot office or a hot manufacturing plant for $10 an hour, and now I make $20 an hour anytime I walk out in my own car, air conditioned, working the hours I want. And Uber has over 1.5 million drivers as of this date. That's 1.5 million people that could be in the workforce, and that's just Uber. That's not Lyft. That's not all the Amazon drivers we see. So just regular transportation is taking people out of the workforce and out of your offices and members' companies. So these are huge obstacles. And can you afford to lose your top talent? What would you do if your membership director left because they just didn't like the work environment? I just hired someone that was in a great job, but she paid well, good benefits, but she's 32, she didn't like the work environment because it's somewhat toxic. And so it was very easy for me to pull them away and give them just the same opportunity, but now she's working in a company that she's really wanted to come work for us forever. So is your work environment one that's pushing people out the door or keeping them in the door? And the 4 key elements you get to work with are obviously wages, benefits, advancement opportunity, and workplace environment. And what I always tell people is don't put your emphasis on wages and benefits. Most, especially young people, that's important, but what they want is a thriving, vibrant workplace. And advancement doesn't mean getting a higher title. Advancement might mean, you know what, Tracy, if you do the things you need to do, we're going to reward you. We're going to give you an all-expense-paid trip to Solutions Day, where you're going to get to network, you're going to do that. They want to be engaged in the industry. My daughter told me, she's 27, she works for Medtronic, and she came to me, I said, what do you like being at work? She says, I like it that we're able to blend some fun and a great environment because it's like my second family. And so she convinced me that you need to have a place at work that blends fun. Work is not work to a young person. Work is a piece of their life. And they want to know that they're making a difference. They want to know that what they do every day really connects. So and then a resource. This is a great book about to come out. I never really give big plugs, but this is one that I think is so important. So important that our association, I just got our board to buy 400 copies of this and send one to every single member. This is a huge struggle for any one of your members. And it's a book called The Non-Obvious Book. This guy came out, he said, I'm tired of people saying the idiots for this, dummies for that. I don't want to call people idiots and dummies. I want to say the non-obvious book on employee engagement. And this is I've seen all the internal of it. I've read a little bit of it. It's a phenomenal book, but this is a great resource in this area of dynamic workplace. This is going to be the #1 thing that holds your members back and holds your associations back in the future. And it's by Jamie Notter and Maddie Grant. Great couple. So Monday morning, I'm a big guy. What do we do different on Monday morning? On Monday morning, I would encourage you to go back to your teams. Yeah, I'm going to give Sherry and Kevin a copy of this and those 10 fundamentals. You want to take the 10 fundamentals and you want to ask your team on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think we do these? I think you'd be surprised at what they say because I've seen it come from other associations. And then you want to look at the phenomenal customer service. How awesome are we at customer service? The dynamic technology. Do we have an app? Is it good enough? And then dynamic workplace culture. How well do you think that is? And then here's my 4 key things. You want to have them rate. Then you want to review it. And you want to create the ideas that can help plug the gaps where you're a 3 and 4 and not a 9 and 10. And you want to execute that with excellence. And I promise you, by doing that, you will slowly begin to see the winds of change come through. I showed you the graph. We had $62,000 in the bank when I got to MTI in 2005. And 13 years later, we just clocked our trade show ending. We're going to have $1.25 million in 13 short years because we did all these things with obsessed minds and chased. And we decided what we wanted, what did our members want, combined the two, and ran like crazy, and we're obsessed every day going after it. And trust me, if you do those things, I promise that you'll get there. I always leave with someone in this room knows what you need to know, and someone in this room is doing what you need to do. And the question is, will you be passionate enough and obsessed enough about to find it so that you can keep a pace of change and you be the disruptors, not be the person being disrupted. Thank you very much.